Welcome to another HFS Videocast in which we bring you insights and perspectives from the HFS research leaders. The topic for today's discussion is around a very interesting and insightful research piece on low code. In conversation with me is research leader Joel Martin, who is the co-author of this interesting piece titled Low Code Addresses the Fast-Paced Go-to-Market Needs of Accelerating Digital. Good morning, Joel. Thanks for taking the time to do this videocast.
Hi, Nishala. Glad to be here.
Wonderful. Let's dive right in. In this report, you have outlined the 5 factors driving the adoption of low code and no code within organizations. For the benefit of anyone who is listening in, could you share what these 5 are?
Sure. I would say, it's a really great study. Really uncovered a lot of things from over 150 senior executives involved in this from Global 2000 companies. The number one thing was low code helps them address something very important to the business. And that's speed and velocity. 74% of our respondents said low code allows them to get products to the business faster. That was the number one thing. Number two, and somewhat of a surprise for me, was the importance of low code with regards to modernizing their legacy applications. So a lot of low code adoption right now is around SAP, Microsoft, Oracle, Salesforce, a lot of the big sort of cornerstone applications companies are using to provide business advantage. And they see low code as a way to make it a lot easier across their team to level set talent to modernize those systems. Probably one of the biggest things that also came out was, what's stopping low code? What's slowing it down? And surprisingly, low code does not mean you don't need to understand how to code. So training was what 62% of people told us they needed support with to effectively adopt and deploy low code further within their organization, whether it be in the technology team or even across the business and support teams. Fourth, and something really near and dear to the HFS heart, is the importance of driving a OneOffice mindset. And I think you and I'll kind of get into that a little bit deeper since it's such an important topic of ours. But 84% of respondents said adopting a OneOffice mindset is critical to being successful with low code and no code being used in the business. And then finally, an important aspect was, does low code and no code mean you don't need a service provider? Can you get rid of outsourcing costs? And actually, it was quite the opposite. What we really see is a way, it's not the death knell for IT services, but really an opportunity for the teams internally and externally to work better together. And that's because they can really harmonize around a standard set of developing applications for the business and hand off skills more effectively around code development.
Thanks, Joel. One of the interesting points you made was about how low code is a new tool supporting legacy and modern software development practices within the enterprise. Could you add a little bit more color around this and just share for anyone who is listening in exactly how and why is this important?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very topical thing right now because there's a big move away from proprietary legacy coding solutions. We've been moving away from this from decades now. We've been adopting or attempting to adopt in many cases agile methodologies, rapid application development platforms, and those have had their fits and spurts. They've done well in some companies, and other companies have really struggled with them. And even within companies, these have been challenges. And a lot of that has to do with still needing to support things like SAP ABAP, or still developing legacy COBOL implementations on financial systems. And then you have a sundry of C++ or Java or now JSON programming. So there's a lot of different aspects. And what we've seen first is a lot of them were, the key vendors rolling out their solutions. But this massive growth from vendors like Appian, Mendix, Uncork, OutSystems, and BettyBlocks, who are rolling out solutions that will integrate with those tools to make it easier to take a traditional code base and make it more available to the business. So you really start developing at the edge and delivering where services are delivered versus customizing at the core, where at some point you really get stuck with some kind of Gordian knot. Low code is also advantageous right now because we've started moving into a cloud native world. So companies really focused on microservices, which brings in how do you code for Docker, Kubernetes, containers, And that's a whole new skill set that's A, highly in demand, and two, hard to come by in the marketplace. And so you get to a whole talent argument there about recruiting and retaining the talent you have in those spaces. And then you look into even edge computing, bringing in, how are you coding for computing at the core and on devices? So it's really changed the way that people are thinking about where they're going in the future with their applications. And low code really is a bridge to all that in some ways. And in some ways, it's a way to basically future-proof what you're doing with legacy apps and deliver that, quick velocity, innovation at speed the business really values.
Wow, that sounds like wonderful, Joel. The next one is something which I'm really interested in knowing. You mentioned in the report that successful low-code adoption requires a OneOffice mindset for collaboration, partnering, and outcome-based activities. As you rightly said, OneOffice is something which is very dear to all of us at HFS because this is something that we have, spoken about for the past several years. Could you talk through a little bit more about, how this is all coming together in the context of low code?
Sure. I'll go back to, before I talk about coding, we'll go back to something that's been going around for 2 decades now, agile development and rapid application development. Both of these started off agile as a methodology, all around how technology can innovate at the speed of the business. And then rapid application development was the actual tools that were being developed over the past 2 decades. The challenges a lot of these faced was we had a lot of different flavors of both agile, the methodology, and then these RAD tools, which led fundamentally to not fast, not velocity, and from the business standpoint, a lot of rolling at the eyes when it came to the technology team saying, hey, we'll use these tools, we'll get you a solution quickly, because that failed to happen over and over again. Low code is finally, if you will, bringing the small a of agile back into play. It can really take the concept of what the business needs to do, whether you're going into, a seasonal promotional piece for the marketing and sales and logistical teams, or looking at a fundamental business piece. They've acquired a company, they need to integrate something. How can they bring innovation, bring co-creation to the business? And that's what low code's really starting to accelerate. And where that ties back to the OneOffice point of view is really about teaming effectively around information and workload flow and the data that everybody's using, getting your teams all on the same page. So they're fundamentally doing what the customers are paying them to do. Customers don't care about your SAP financial operations. What they care about is, can I transact with you in an efficient way, whether they're a partner, a B2B customer, or a B2C. And low code is allowing for requirements to be gathered and then turned into actual products quickly and effectively for the teams. And that really is fundamentally the OneOffice mindset, delivering a unified service and experience across the business, whether you're in the back, the middle, or the front office, so your customers, build trust and loyalty with you.
Great, Joel. So what do you see in 2022 in terms of low code adoption?
We see a transition happening basically from the low code that's come out from companies like Microsoft with Power Apps, really transitioning to these cross-platform low code providers like OutSystems and Uncork and Mendix. There's a compelling reason now with training to roll out solutions that can reach across different applications, tie together in a visual way how developers and slowly into support teams, partners, and then citizen developers, the ability to create code. So 2022 is really going to be about the business adopting it, building up a rubric, if you will, on which low code they use for which scenario, and then how they co-create with their partners. That's what we're going to see this year.
Great. My last question, Joel, is what was the most exciting thing for you personally working on this report?
Oh, the most exciting thing is just actually learning about these new tools. And for me, it was finally seeing Agile, which is something I've been following for the past 2 decades and have been in projects myself on this, actually seeing with low code, this can actually be a real solution for the business now. It can really deliver all those core tenets of developing and delivering business value through technology in the ways that were opined and envisaged 2 decades ago.
Thank you so much, Joel, for your time to do this HFS Videocast. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nishal. Always great to see you.